Welcome to our brand new feature on the Powder Coater podcast called In the News with Kim and Jim. Get ready for a fast-paced discussion on topics including coatings news, industry trends, climate initiatives, the right to repair, innovations, and more. Join me along with my co-host, Jim Kunkel, as we bring you what you need to know and maybe some of what you don't. Stay relevant in your business and stay tuned for our brand new Power Hour, where the temperature rises and every minute counts. Welcome to the Powder Coater podcast. I'm your host, Kim Scott, and I have some very exciting news today with this recording. We have joined forces with Jim Kunkel from Coatings Talk on a new In the News segment. And we hope to do this with audience approval and listenership approval and engagement. We hope to bring you relative news stories to keep you informed because there's so much to know, right? And there's so much happening in powder coatings. There's so much happening in the right to repair, climate initiatives, in industrial coatings, new innovations, and new announcements from big players in the marketplace. And it was that first show, Jim, that I think we did, and I'm just going to show you. It was episode 59 that we did, and it was called Trends Watch Your Right to Repair. And I'm telling you, this was like one of the top shows that we had last year. And I want you to go over there today and listen to that show because it is so important if you are in the restoration market, if you're a custom coater, if you do parts for, auto parts, if you do all kinds of aftermarket parts, and you do a lot of coatings for aftermarket suppliers, you're going to want to know what's in this episode. So, Jim, with that, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Kim. Thank you for having me. And everyone, please wait until after you get finished watching this and then go check out the Right to Repair. But before you go over there, you have to make sure that you do hit the like button and you also share this with everyone because we want everybody to get some awareness about this new show called In the News. And we're going to be covering such amazing and exciting topics. But, Kim, let me, for everyone, kind of explain who I am. I've been in the protective coatings industry for over 15 years. I actually got my start really into industrial coatings working for a steel service center here in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania market, who also had a fabrication operation and got involved in powder coating. So I was involved with powder coating first, and then I was able to join the Society for Protective Coatings, which eventually led into merger with NACE, which formed AMP. And then for 2 years now, I've been the manager of engineering services related to specifications on capital projects and things like that. I work for Akzo Nobel International Paint. And over the last 4 years, I've been the host of Coatings Talk, which is a YouTube channel. It's also a live stream series that goes out on multiple platforms. It is also a over 3,000 subscriber newsletter. And I focus on technical topics, both for the protective coatings and corrosion industries. But I also, in addition to covering technical topics, also to interview very interesting and exciting people, both in coatings and corrosion. And then my latest venture, and kind of in a way with Right to Repair kind of put me into this mindset, is that, we're embarking right now into not only a digital revolution, but we have this AI technology new revolution that's happening. And so I started a series called The Digital Revolution with Jim Kunkel. It is now an audio podcast doing extremely well on all the major platforms. But I also do content, video, audio broadcast with it, and also articles that I do publish. So everyone I asked to join the revolution, Viva la Revolution. And I think that covers pretty much everything for me.
I couldn't ask for a more accomplished co-host. So I'm so grateful to have you on a show and share a show with you. And who knows where this will go? We don't even know the name of it. I just called it in the news because it seemed like that's all I could come up with this morning, and I had to make a logo for it. So we'll figure out a name for it later. But the more important thing is that we cover interesting topics that are in powder coatings and cover industrial coatings on all different levels. And I arrived at this from interviewing all these different kinds of people on the show,
Yeah.
because it just goes off on these tangents, and there's so much more to it. And the world is moving really fast, Jim. I mean, faster than I can handle.
Yeah, so true on that. And the thing that Kim and I, and one of the reasons why we're collaborating together is that a lot of times people ask me, why do you do what you do? And I'm sure, Kim, you get the same question all the time when it comes to the broadcasting, the content. And I view myself related to, the industries that I work in, and then also to now focused on digital transformation, is that I'm like an evangelist. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to spread the word out there related to the greater protective coatings and corrosion industries, and then the same aspect for the digital transformation that's happening. And I want to focus and cater in on those two industries, but also with digital revolution, I talk a little broader as well because it's a much larger picture. But what we find in our industry, especially when you're looking at powder coating, if you're looking at coatings and corrosion, we're having a real difficult time out there finding, who are the next Kims, who are the next Jims. And what we feel by collaborating together and getting out there and talking about uh, not only the industry, but sharing the passion that everyone has related
Yeah.
to working in this industry, that will help recruit people. It'll make people interested in it. And Kim, I'm sure when you were a little girl, you didn't say, "Hey, I want to grow up and I'm going to be a powder coater." We all wind up in some aspect of whatever industries we're in. But when it comes to coatings and corrosion and powder coating and topics like that, a lot of times people don't realize what we do. And, I try to explain to people what I do. The funniest thing I could say is, I get paid to watch paint dry.
Yeah. And, people hear these stories in the news and they want to know how it makes sense for them, or how it makes sense for uh, their business,
Yeah.
right? And why are you talking about this, Kim? Or why are you talking about this, Jim? So, that's where we're kind of meeting in the middle with this show. Of course, we're always about the voice of custom coating, but we finding out that it kind of can go beyond those barriers. So, with
Yes.
that, I think how we're going to do this show format is we're going to kind of take turns. So Jim has found some articles. I'm going to have him hit it off first, and then we're going to kind of just rap about it, right? And then we'll take turns, because what I'm interested in and what he is interested in could be two different things, but we want to kind of give you a well-rounded I guess point of view or insight, right? What I'm thinking, or what, and just some banter back and forth. So we hope you enjoy this show. Sit back in your easy chair if it's after hours, or if you're at work, turn it up, and let's get talking. So let's get started with this first one.
Not a problem. Yeah, this really dovetails off of the conversation that we had in 2023 related to right to repair. I'm a strong advocate of right to repair. We all own different devices, like for example, an
Yeah.
iPhone, and you might own it, but believe it or not, you don't have the ability to do your own repairs on it if you are a technical person, or if you take it to somebody, you pretty much are at the mercy of companies like Apple. And we find this out that a lot of industries are the same way. We find farmers that have multi-million dollars pieces of equipment, and they literally are shut down in production when they know all they need to do is switch one module for another, but they got to pay for a technician to come in from the
Yep.
company to be able to perform that work when they could do it in a matter of minutes. and they're down for a day or hours or whatever it is. Time is money. And so when it comes to right to repair, there are a lot of people that are passionate about it. And myself, I'm very passionate about it as well, because the old way of in America was always that if something broke, if we had the ability to fix it, you fix it
Yeah,
and you
we're just
renew
that
it.
way. We're built that way. And if
Exactly.
and if you're listening or if you're on Instagram and you haven't seen those farmers in Germany and the Netherlands and in France, that's some of what they're doing. You know,
Mhm.
you're watching them running down these streets and, you know, in the hundreds and stuff. This is just some of what they're talking about. And they're trying to get the attention of the government, which I think they're doing a really good job of. So when you see those videos on Instagram or Facebook, that's kind of what's happening, and stuff. They realize that this right to repair is very infringent on their own capabilities, and they've been fixing their own stuff for years. And this is, you know, kind of why we want to talk about these important things, because, you know, as always, Jim, it spills over into other industries, right? So, anyways, continue on. Let's find out about what's going on in Oregon.
Yeah. So, what recently happened at the end of March was that the governor of Oregon had signed into law one of the nation's strongest right to repair laws. And so Oregon was kind of the battleground. It had been a battleground state for right to repair for the longest time.
Hmm.
And you have to realize the lobbying effort that has been done. There are nonprofit organizations that are aligned with right to repair, and they've spent millions of dollars. They've spent thousands of hours lobbying not only the federal government, but also the state governments as well. And right now, it looks like related to more of the federal, that's going to be a longer road to accomplish it through the federal side. So the strategy is okay, we can still continue focusing lobbying efforts on the federal government, but let's go state to state. And they
Hmm.
know, these organizations know if they can get that one key state to go ahead and adopt it, now it starts to become an easier argument
Right.
with other states to say, look, this is what Oregon has done. This is what the parameters on it. All we're looking for you to do is match and mirror what Oregon has done. And the event, what will happen is it will just totally cascade
It's a
everywhere.
waterfall effect.
But what's nice about this, and as the article goes through, and this is related to really, repairing broken tech devices. This is how simple it was. Now it will blossom into the bigger stuff, the industrial products and everything like that. But what's happened is this has now started to cause Apple to relook at their strategy regarding their design and build and also serviceability of their iPhones. So you're going to start to see over the next 2 to 3 years, the design and how they're built, they're going to have to start changing them because now it will not be that you have to go to a Apple store or an authorized Apple, that you'll be able to get components from the free market to be able to do repair as well. So this law is amazing right now. And like I say, the big impact is going to be related to dealing with electronics and consumer electronics and everything like that. So I'm real excited to see this happen. It's taken years to get to this point, but we have got to that point. And the thing is to continue to press out there, push harder, and get this adopted by other states.
Right. And to also, yeah, I mean, pay attention to what's happening in your state, and and the subject matter, because uh you know what we've covered in that episode, in episode 59, was this. What's going to happen is they're going to make these corporations handle, or what they want to do is create this circular economy. And what
Yes.
this circular economy includes is it excludes you, the small business person, and only allows certain certified businesses or regional businesses to handle all the repairs. whether it's a tractor or a iPhone, or, and even Google announced, you sent that to me because we've been kind of emailing each other when we see something, this last year, we've been emailing each other. Did you see this? Did you see this? So, I mean, the Google blog post or article was kind of mind blowing because you could just bypass all that text at the beginning and go right down to that last one of those last few paragraphs where they already had announced a repair shop, and they're nationwide, and you won't have to drive but 12 miles. There's your 15-minute city concept already, and everything else. So we'll be putting our, if you're listening, you can go to the website. We'll be putting all of the links that we're talking about and all the news articles in there, so you'll be able to click on something if it piques your interest and stuff. I just wanted to make that announcement now, but yeah, go ahead, Jim. Are you done with this one, or are we going to move? Should we move on? Oh, I guess I should probably put the topic right to repair, because that's what we're talking about.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. However you want to do this, Kim. Did you want to bring up yours, or?
Yeah, I have mine. So give me a second here. I have to, and we have to remember, and because I know that we're both, we're both doing podcasting and video podcasting. So I want to kind of always have to keep that in mind. Like, I've got people listening in the shop, or they're maybe watching on their TV or their digital device. So this one is an Axios .com thing, article, and it's talking about a flood of right to repair bills. So maybe that kind of continues on is with this Oregon law. Now this is the watershed moment, because basically, and this is, if you haven't noticed, this is kind of the trend that's going on right now with all of these states with the federal overreach that's happening right now, and has been happening for years, actually. These states are under attack, and this is our setup, our system, our republic, our democracy in action, right? Because when something isn't right happening in a state, they have the right to kind of set up their own laws. This is kind of a way to kind of counterbalance any overreach. And thank God our founding fathers thought of that, and had the foresight to think of that, and make sure they put that in our founding documents. So this is where you're seeing it happen in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right to repair, we've got immigration, we've got a lot of other things that are happening where we're not quite happy. Your state might not be happy with how the federal government's handling, all this stuff that's going on. And so they're kind of now taking it into their own hands. So this article here, just basically all I wanted to say here was, that the American Farm Bureau has definitely stepped up into enhancing the ability of farmers to control their operation and the upkeep of their own agricultural equipment. So it's kind of just a redundant of what we already just talked about. And that 14 state houses have introduced laws just like that Oregon law and stuff like that. But I think they just point to the turn of the millennium as the moment when powerful tech producers sealed devices away in hermetic casing. And that's what's kind of been this, thing with the iPhones, right? How much can you open up an iPhone and still have the warranty in place, right? And have it working and stuff like that. So it's kind of their way. The other thing is that when you agree to something like data gathering that these apps have on our phones and our devices, is you're giving up those rights for them to collect that data, and who's it's now owned, that data is now owned by them, not by you, even though that's your, your login or your this or that, right? So it's it's kind of interesting, and it's just the progress of what we've been doing, here, and the track that we've been going on for many years, right? So did you have another right to repair?
No, what I wanted to do next is go into the related to carbon neutral. And a particular creamery that had made. Oh, thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
So one of the thing that kind of rages through the coatings and corrosion industry, and I'm sure related to powder coating as well, and many other industries, is related to the push on carbon neutrality and addressing carbon issues. And again, when we think of, not to get into a political debate or anything like that, the carbon neutral push and initiatives, it's here to stay. It will continue to grow, and we see it. And the reason why is financial organizations such as BlackRock. They're very profitable, and they are pushing hard on agendas related to carbon neutrality. And then they make capital more affordable when companies are pursuing carbon neutral strategies. And in the industries, some of the industries that, related to, my full-time job, we're starting to see a lot of refineries, petrochemical, a lot of companies adding carbon capture to take advantage both of related to getting financing, but also to get federal credits, so that as they're producing refining oil or they're making a petrochemical or whatever they're doing, they're reclaiming, capturing that carbon. The other aspect of it is there are companies that are developing carbon capture technologies that are really being heavily invested into. And then we're also looking at carbon capture storage. Now, some of it could be, it's going to be underground storage where they're going to be basically mining out large caverns. And what's wild about when they do these caverns, they can actually reclaim the rock and any materials that come from those caverns and put them into repurpose. It could be anything from like landscaping to being put into aggregate for concrete or whatever it might be, right? There's so many uses with that. But they pump the carbon into the ground. But they're also, too, they're making man-made, what I would call well structures, where they can actually store the carbon in there in a very pure form. And I'm amazed to see that aspects of carbon can be put into other production. In other words, that carbon just doesn't get captured and stored underground or in a containment. What can be is it can be sold as a commodity because it can be introduced into other products and other applications. So what's happening is that we're starting to see that there might be down the road more of a cost benefit related to carbon capture than there is today. But anytime we have these new emerging technologies, at the beginning, they're expensive, they're cumbersome. The technology, think of fracking. Remember fracking? It was never economical to do. It just never made a business sense until the technology caught up. And then all of a sudden, fracking became such a great opportunity out there for so many parts of the country and stuff like that. So what I wanted to cover on this is the Strauss family creamery pays the way for dairy farms to become carbon neutral by 2030. And it says here, cows are often the poster child for negative environmental impacts of farming or ranching. But what if they could be a force for good in the fight against climate change? So what's happening now is you're starting to see where in these different dairy farms that they are finding ways to capture emissions from be it methane to also related to manure as well. And in my industry and working in protective coatings, I tend to work occasionally with wastewater treatment facilities. And you can have large footprint wastewater systems, like in Chicago, for example. I think the fourth largest in the world when it comes to wastewater reclamation. And now they're looking at encapsulating to capture the H2S, that sulfur smell, the rotten egg smell, and convert that both into heating energy, vehicle energy, in other words, to use it as a gas that way, or actually take it and use it into other type of production that might be used, like I said, with carbon product as well. So what we're starting to see is we're starting to see kind of a shift in a way as the technology improves and everything like that, that we'll start to get away from a lot of the incentives and a lot of the subsidies. And you'll start to see probably there'll be a future carbon market where you're trading just as much as, fracking gases and other things like that, where you're starting to, trade carbon or, methane encapsulation with methane gases and things like that. But now all of a sudden, as everyone says, the world's heating up because of cow farts. What if we could make money not only on the dairy cattle, right, like the creamery, but think about it. Now they could maybe make potential money related to the manure and also the emissions from capturing that from the cows.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing here unfold is that there's these these big announcements like, we're going to ban cows and we're going to do this and we're going to do that and the methane and this and that. And everybody's just like, what the F, And then what they're having to do is they're having to have a think about it, right? As a business owner, like, what are they talking about? My cows are smelly and causing all this, terrible things to happen around the world, right? And I think what it is businesses are now pushing back, right? Just like the states are, and they're like, whoa, 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 hang on a minute. Carbon, first of all, is, one of the largest chemicals or elements in our on the earth, and you can't just say practically everything is made of carbon, right? We are carbon. So you can't just say automatically pick on the cows and say, what they're creating is a problem and stuff like that. So, I think that, I think it's good, because all this mandating from all these technocrats, mostly in Europe, right, that have this voice, this world stage saying, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And you're like, you're not going to do anything, right? We're going to push back on what you're saying, and we're going to put pen to paper. We're going to gather data. We're going to do the research, and then we're going to come back to you and say, no, 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 it's not going to go like this. It's going to go like this, right? And this is because we're in control.
Yes. So when they tell you to eat the bugs, I don't rather eat the bugs. By the way, when you do go shopping, look to make sure that what's going into it. It'll tell you on the ingredients if it's grasshopper. They will grind up grasshopper into flour and things like that. But what's nice about this particular article, this creamery actually talks about doing what they call rotational grazing method, and with it, they were able to do a cost savings of 100 to 150,000 in annual feed cost by doing rotational grazing, and then they also switched over to utilizing basically the biofuels that are coming from the cows. They're utilizing that on the property too. So in other words, the methane capture, they're utilizing it to also use around the property as well. So again, these are ways to kind of look. If you're able to kind of cut costs, make some money, a lot of people view a cow that it's Betsy, it's my best friend and everything. But really, when you think about it, cows they're cash registers.
Right.
We grow them either for food. We have them available for dairy products and things like that. But instead of viewing them, like, as you said, as, dirty, let's call them dirty, stinky animals that, emit methane and everything like that. I mean, all grazing animals, they are methane machines versus what we are as omnivores and everything like that.
I think Ross is a methane machine. That's for sure.
He's a grazer?
He's our methane machine around here.
You encapsulate him and make some money off of that guy. I mean, you're making money off of him now, but you might as well go a little step further there, right?
I should kind of think about some of the other ways I can monetize my husband. But I think it's great that it puts people into, I guess, maybe a reactive state, but it also it also brings about innovation, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they've always had this idea to bring this about, but it's only until now, when this is now put on the line, for them to go ahead and say, okay, well, look, let's roll out this idea we had. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
So
yeah, and when you look at a lot of the green initiatives, like for example, utilizing wind power to generate electricity, to take, for example, you have blue and green and white hydrogen, depending on where the source, the feedstock's coming. Is it coming from the ground to produce white hydrogen? Is it blue hydrogen, which would be water converting, breaking down water, H2O, breaking it down, but utilizing, again, a sustainable power source such as wind power to produce the hydrogen. Now, the downside with hydrogen production is that you just can't ship hydrogen around in large pressure tanks because they're basically bombs. So you have to convert it into ammonia, and then ammonia back into hydrogen at the depot that you're going to be, putting it into vehicles and things like that. But again, when you're looking at certain these green initiatives, like just as much as hydrogen could be scary, ammonia in a big tank is scary as well.
yeah,
But again, these are going to be trade-offs that we have to look at, and some things make more sense than others. But when you have a renewable source such as cows, instead of viewing them as a net negative on the earth, if you're a person who views them as methane machines, if you can capture that methane, however you do it, and the same thing with the manure, if you can utilize it in other ways, that's a net plus. And
yeah,
that's the mindset.
absolutely.
That's the mindset that I think this creamery has really laid out there. They're saying, listen, we're going to play the game. We're going to do it. Here's how we're going to do it, and we're going to make money at it, and we're going to have fun, if you want to call it fun. We're just going to show you ways that we're innovative, that we don't have to rely on being told that, oh, you got cows, and that's the problem. That's why global climate change is happening, because you got cows.
Right,
You know.
right. Well, let's move on to powder coatings, because, our show revolves around powder coatings and powder coating news. So I found, well, first of all, I didn't have to go very far for this one. This was let me pull up the article here. This was a article, or it was actually an email from Tiger Drylac, which is a main supplier here. They're a global supplier, where they're talking about how they've already successfully transitioned 300 products of TGIC formulations into TGIC free. The TGIC free is providing a cost savings benefit to finishers by offering a better first pass transfer. And they are kind of converting all of their, here in North America especially, they've been at this already in Europe. So it's not Europe that we're really talking about. They're kind of talking about North American clients. But they're basically converting slowly. And what they're doing and how they're doing it is they're waiting for that TGIC powder to run out in their inventory, and then they stop. Obviously it's been stopped in production, and then as soon as it's run out, they've sold the last of it, they're going to start converting and going into their series. What they call it, a one. So if it's a 38 series, it'll be now a 138. If it's 49, it'll be a 149, and so on. So if you see anything with 3 digits that starts with a 1, you know that it's TGIC free. I think it's basically, we've been talking about this on the show for quite a while, about how they're going to, slowly convert all of us filthy Americans into, the more European compliant. We do lose a little bit of, performance, as we discussed in a recent episode with the billers. I think it was just a few episodes ago. So I think it's probably episode 67 and 66. where we kind of talk about that a little bit. But I think it's all good. And I think in the end, they seem to be working towards, they'll only improve the efficiency. The main thing is that you cannot combine you can't combine the powders. So if you're at the end of your box and you've got a little bit of TGIC and you bought a new box of TGIC free, don't combine it. And that's basically what this email is about, just where they are and how they're going about doing it, which I think is pretty efficient. I think the next article is from Sherwin-Williams, where they've just launched a new RAL color in satin sheen finishes. And I think that that's really good for the industry, because there's so many times that I have clients that just want the basic color, but they just can't stand that shiny, glossy appearance that the RALs have. And I think that this is a really good move. And I believe, I couldn't find the article, but I do believe that PPG has, for a while now, had the RALs in a textured or a fine texture. I think they call it FTE or something like that. It's basically a fine texture in the RALs. So if you are ordering or having to order RALs, you've got to know that you can go to your regular source for RALs and get that semi-gloss, because they all produce it in that finish. But now you can go to Sherwin-Williams and order it in a satin sheen, and you can go to PPG and order it in a fine texture. And that's all I wanted to say about those.
Right now, the next article that I wanted to cover, and this really comes, you're in Maui, so you deal probably with shipping containers more so than I do in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But why shipping containers can really be kind of a indicator of when it comes to inflation. And so hopefully I'm going to try to play this and see if this
Oh,
works.
wait, here. Okay, yeah, let me turn. I just turned it up. Here we go.
Yeah, there's some sound to this, so I'm going to try to make this thing play.
Container shipping is responsible for moving 90% of the world's goods. Most of it is in metal boxes like these.
You can have hundreds of items from hundreds of different companies in one container. And so it really is a logistics marvel.
But if shipping containers aren't in the right place at the right time, problems may unfold.
Those containers would normally be off in 1 to 2 days, but it's been a week and they're still here.
It's crops that are going to waste.
The supply chain is not there. It's just not.
Congestion at the ports, it limits the availability of those coveted containers. It then inflates the pricing. All of this is indeed being passed over to the consumers.
People suddenly realize how important that container is to everybody's standard of living, really, to be honest with you.
By my calculations, if you take the value of everything that moves in container shipping, it works out to $937 per year per person on the planet.
Shipping containers support the flow of global trade.
We are kind of the hidden secret in the background that tries to make sure that everything is everywhere available.
Just as China leads the world in exports, it also leads in container manufacturing.
One way or another, half the world's merchant marine fleet owes its existence to China.
Here's how shipping containers can save or cripple the global economy. Supply chain disruptions can have big ramifications for American shoppers and have a major impact on inflation. They have contributed, on average, about 60% of the run-up of U.S. inflation from...
So I'm going to stop it there. And so what we see is, because of the availability, we're in the endemic right now. So you had the pandemic, we're in the endemic. And what has happened as we were pulling out of the pandemic, we had supply issues. And Kim, you probably experienced this too, when you would place orders for powder, materials, whatever you needed, consumables. It took longer to get it. And also you started to see the inflation starting to kick in, because there was such a high demand by everybody to get back to 100%. What ended up happening in that time frame was that you also had shortages of shipping containers, because production had ceased on them. It had stopped for a period of time because global shipping, for the most part, it still ran, but it was not at its normal pace. And so you started seeing the cost for shipping containers go way up. It was expensive to get a container and to ship it. Recently, here in Baltimore, I'm about 4 hours out of
Oh my
Baltimore.
goodness,
We
yeah.
had a large container ship that collided with and brought down a bridge, and unfortunately, roughly six people lost their life on that. But it could have been a larger impact. But economically, that bridge collapse was a huge, because it's one of a
Oh,
few
it's affecting
access
more than that. Yeah.
points. Exactly. So it's going to have a ripple effect on at least in the northeast part of the United States when it comes to economic output and all these other things. But you also saw that ship sit there forever, and it's still probably there with all of the
It is.
containers on there.
Yeah.
And so that's
And it
costing.
looked like one of the containers, it looked like, because one had busted open a little bit.
Yeah, there were chemicals, caustic chemicals on them. Yep.
I don't know what, I haven't heard all that was on there, but it looked like there was at least like some refrigerating units where the door was open and it was kind of hanging out and over the side. But, it's not just that, but it's also like the loss of this bridge, because it's so pivotal, is that there was like, 30,000 vehicles crossing back and forth on this bridge every day.
Daily,
So
yeah.
it's
Major
more than just
distribution route. Yeah.
I did hear yesterday that they opened up 2 lanes, and they're going to try to open up a 3rd lane to get bigger ships through it. But yeah, I mean, the impact on something like that is huge. I think for Hawaii, it's always like we're always on edge here when we hear of a strike or delay or a pandemic, like the LA ports were shut down for a long time. I mean, when you go to the port, it's kind of funny, because when you go to the port, when you're watching this video and you see how efficient it is, and then you go to the port to go get or pay for your car that you just shipped, or some bulk items that you just bought, it's extremely inefficient. To go there to go pick up your stuff or drop your stuff off. It seems like you have to go through, a security check, and then no one's around. They never have enough people, and yet they manage to get all this stuff done. So it's kind of interesting from from a global perspective down to the individual, perspective of going, shipping a car and going and getting it down at the dock. It's like you're sitting there. It's like, hurry up and wait. Okay, your stuff's here. Come and get it. So then you go down there, and then you sit there for a half an hour waiting for some guy to go get the keys, pass the security check or whatever, and then drive your vehicle out to come and get it. Right? It's I don't know. So there is a kind of a dichotomy that happens there, right? And in the other aspect that I have is, like, anytime you hear of a strike happening or any kind of slowdown related to shipping to Hawaii, is we all just go run out and buy as much toilet paper and paper towels as we possibly can, right? It's just natural human being behavior, right? Especially when you're on an island. That's pretty much, it's not just impending weather or anything like that. It can actually just be no planes, a pilot strike couldn't affect toilet paper, and then there you go. The price of toilet paper goes up, and the price of water bottles go up, and everything else, because we've already experienced that here, so.
Yeah. And, I think the other aspect of, when you're reading into this, is that we really, when you think about global trade, especially, I can talk about the American perspective. We have so much of our manufacturing that's wrapped up coming in from Asia. And if you have a major conflict, we never know what might happen. The big burning question right now is the Taiwan and mainland China. Taiwan is viewed as part of China, but we know Taiwan is the former republic before the communists took over mainland China. And so, you have this this difference of governments, but also you have the CCP that views Taiwan as really part of them, part of
It's
China.
a cash cow for them if they had it, because they are the number one chip producer. So, I mean, it's really just more of for them
Yeah.
to kind of just take over because they need it economically as a sovereign nation.
But I think what I view, related to supply chain disruptions, especially what we had, coming out of the pandemic, was that it's a wake up call for nations to have some level of foundation when it comes to manufacturing and other type of commodities. For example, potash, that a lot of the potash coming into North America was coming from Ukraine. And then you have the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It kind of slowed things up. Now Canada's stepping up, and there's a lot of potash coming from Canada. So we have the ability in some areas to be flexible, but we need to have more of that flexibility, because if it's a situation of containers can't be made in order to ship the products, that, you can produce the product, but you just can't produce the shipping container or the availability of shipping containers to get the stuff over here. That is a nightmare right there that should, at whatever cost, try to be, if not totally 100%, you need to alleviate it to some aspects so that it doesn't shut things down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, let's see. Okay, what else do we got here? We got, I think in terms of industrial coatings, let's see, I have this article here I found. Let me bring it up. I'm a little slower than you are, Jim, on this.
It's okay.
Let's see. Where'd it go? The article go?
For the next broadcast, maybe I should have some puppets and I could do like a little show.
So this one here is finishing and coatings, and they surveyed some shops, job shops, to predict a rough ride for finishers and coaters in 2024.
Yikes.
And and I did talk to a coder in the Midwest last week, and he was saying they were pretty much like flat. They weren't really, they were a little soft compared to last year. I think that's expected. Where it goes from here, I don't know. But I think the main part that I wanted to share with you was just this talks about liquid and powder coaters and other finishing systems. So this section here just deals with the powder coating section, but just that 40% of their sales remain the same as 2023. So, we're pretty much, we're not really going up. We're not really going down. We're just kind of the same as last year kind of thing. So I guess a lot of people, it's concerning because, as a business owner, you're always wanting things to be busier than it was last year. It also limits capital improvements if you were planning those and stuff like that. So it is but that they're looking at about 40% off. They're basically saying 40% of their sales remain the same. So, it's interesting to see where sales will go into next year. Will they remain soft or the same, or will they increase? So some of them are saying that they expect it to go up by 10%, while others say probably not. So I guess it's just in a wait and see kind of thing, So, this is interesting.
So, and I can speak firsthand because I actually have a friend in the industry that has his business. He's a contracting operation. He does a lot of institutional work, and this is probably one of the fastest growing segments for his company, and also one of the most profitable for his company, because what he's finding is universities, hospitals, schools, prisons, a lot of prisons, government facilities, even to military bases, whatever you can think of, everyone is really getting into, we need to do upgrades. And one of the upgrades is antimicrobial coatings. And what I found in the industry is that so much technology, especially related to silver, has really come into play when it comes to
Yeah.
antimicrobial coatings. And what they could be produced a lot more cost effective because of formulations and also the way the production's been done. But the antimicrobial coatings market is literally on an explosive growth. And as here presented by what is this? This is SNS Insider, is that it's poised to grow at 32.5 billion by 2031. So you can see
Oh, yeah.
it's starting off at roughly about $12 billion, and by 2031, over doubling, more than doubling, and the profitability is huge. And like I had mentioned, a friend of mine, he does this work, and he can't. He's got multiple crews doing this type of work, and he needs to add more. The problem that he's having, like a lot of people are having in the industrial painting and architectural painting, and it doesn't matter what you're looking at, is the workforce. He just can't
Mm-hmm.
find enough people to be able to do the work. So he ends up kind of picking and choosing what he's going to do based on what his scalability is at this particular time.
Right.
But if he could scale up, he would chase after everything and probably be able to do it because he doesn't. He says there's not a whole lot of real heavy competition. There are a lot of companies that just don't get involved in this type of work.
Right. There are just in my research, it seems like there's just a handful of architects and designers that specify in or do specialties in this healthcare, restaurant, anywhere you need something durable like an antimicrobial coating. There's just a handful of specifiers too. So we all know that post-pandemic, I mean, it was easy to understand or project that the future of interiors and interior design and public spaces were going to demand these types of coatings a lot more. If not for their effectiveness, at least for their assurity, right? That you can give someone when they walk into the hospital or an emergency room that, because we all know those people are too busy to clean, and so it's nice to know that maybe if they didn't clean it, there's some kind of active ingredient in the coating that will continue to, assist and minimize growth, right?
Yeah, and depending on let's say the use, or let's say the traffic, the cleaning methodologies, these coatings typically they could last anywhere from 4 to 6 years, and they have to be reapplied. So it's a renewable market too for the contractors. So they know that on a cycle, depending on what type of facility and what type of, like I say, cleaning process use, wearability is done, they could be doing this work every 4 to 6 years with the same companies that they're working on, the same facilities that they're doing this painting in.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're all, you're sitting in the waiting for the doctors to come in. You're in the room and you're sitting on this thing that a million people have sat on. They got the paper, you're sitting on the paper or whatever, but you're like looking around. That's what I do when I go to the doctor. I just look around the room because you got nothing else to look at. And you're like, is that clean? Is that clean? And who was in here before me?
Yeah,
or the door is closed and you can hear some kid coughing some raspy cough or something, or crying over something, or, you can hear the banter with the nurses or whatever, like too much information, right? At some point.
Well,
right?
I mean, it's like with me, the minute I get off an airplane, get home, I get right in the shower. And all the laundry goes. It's like segregated as being toxic.
Just even if it's been cleaned before you put it in the suitcase, I just wash it again. Yeah, it's something about it. It's just something about it, right?
Yeah, because you never know.
So, yeah. So, Jim, to close out what we're our first episode, hope of many, right, to come. I mean, we can continue to talk about this, and there are so many articles. We're just getting started. So, if you've lasted this far, thank you so much. And I want to have Jim finish it off with his last article, and then we can kind of just banter about that and finish up the show.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. What I found really interesting is that uh, in the last couple of years, probably everyone has seen a lot of the images coming from the James Webb Space Telescope. And what's really innovative about this space telescope is that it has the ability to see literally back to almost the creation of time and space.
Yeah.
And what we're finding is they call it deep field. So it's doing deep field surveys. These are things that we can't even see from the Earth. We can't see with, the old Hubble Space Telescope couldn't even go back this far. This thing is so precise, both as doing X-rays, but also imaging as well. And the only reason is because of the lensing that's done, but also the ultra black. And so what this particular article that I want to cover is that there is a new ultra black coating that's going to be used for space telescopes and also for ground-based imaging as well. The deepest black you can get really helps because what it does is it can really get that faint light, and you can extrapolate on it to figure out exactly what that faint light is. But this is a new ultra black film coating that goes on the aerospace-grade magnesium alloys. So think of the bonding that needs to be done, and think about this. This is a space coating. I've done episodes on space coatings. I've done a Coating Stock Insights newsletter on space coatings. These are the next, the new frontier, the brave and bold and everything like that, as we work on, what are going to be the new powder coat formulations for space travel, and the same thing for liquid coatings and specialty coatings and everything like that. And so we have to design these things to operate within, zero gravity. They're dealing in the harshest conditions. I had read a question I had one time is, what does a space taste like? And the Apollo astronauts, as they would do spacewalks and also when they were on the moon and everything like that, they say that it has like a really pungent metallic, chemically taste to it.
Whoa.
And the reason why is that they didn't taste it. What they did was it was residue left over on their, like if they would get back into the space shuttle or get back into the Apollo module, that would be on their outer part of their helmets and their gear. So that would permeate with inside of the space they were in, and they could taste this. And they said it was a really metallic taste. So you can imagine space is probably like burning metal smell, and it would have those properties. So when I think about it, it's probably a super corrosive and harsh environment, and you're dealing with a lot of the micrometeorites, you're dealing with impact. But these coatings have to be very robust and designed and engineered in a way that they can deal with the most extreme environment. And let's call space an environment. You have space weather and everything. But it's kind of cool to see articles like this where, we can develop this ultra black to really help us see further, collect more data so that we can understand exactly not only where we came from, but the bizarre things that exist out there that just don't make sense.
Right. And the time it takes to travel, to get to where to where they have to go, to whatever planet they're going. Yeah. I mean, it has to last long enough, but that with the lowest sheen you can possibly find will give you the better data in terms of the photography that they can take or the readings. There won't be any interference, right? So that's a really good, and these telescopes too, they're building up at Mauna Loa. It's going to be, actually it's Mauna Kea, not Mauna Loa, but they're tearing one down right now, a very old one. I think it's the Suzuki one. I'm not sure. That's been there for 30, 40 years. And they're building a brand new giant one. So it's always this competition. Scientists are competitive, but you would think that from you think of competition from a business perspective, but sometimes these scientists are like, I have the biggest telescope in the world and I work there, right?
Yeah, it's
And
about funding.
that's how they compete, right?
Yeah, it's about
Is through
funding.
funding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that Costa Rica, is it Costa Rica?
Well, that
Or
collapsed.
Chile, maybe, I think,
Yeah,
that has the
the one
bigger
in
one
Puerto
right now.
Rico, the one that Arecibo collapsed, and they're looking at trying to rebuild it.
Yeah, but there's one in South America. It's either Chile or Costa Rica, but I want to say Chile.
I think it's Chile. Yeah, it's a very
It's
high
Chile
mountain.
that has the biggest one now, but this Mauna Kea one is actually going to be bigger than that. So they just announced, it's been a big fight because they were, the Hawaiians were protesting, the native Hawaiians were protesting on how to go about doing it. Not that they were blocking what was happening. They were just blocking how they handle the situation culturally, to include them and everything. That was a few years ago that all that took place. But yeah, I think that's been a great show. I like this. How about you, Jim?
I do too. I think this was a good opportunity to kind of, we got a new vehicle here, kick the tires, take it out for a road spin. I think this was a worthy first episode. It's going to get better and better, and I'm so grateful since the day I met you and Ross to be involved and included not only in the live streams and the opportunity to be on there, but moving forward to work with you, if it's going to be called In the News or whatever we're going to call this. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to expand not only in coating aspects, powder coating, liquid coatings, whatever it might be, but also to talk about some other relevant topics that kind of really get thrust into what we do on a daily and a monthly and a yearly basis. So.
Yeah, it's so easy just to read through an article or be too busy to even read it. And that's what I just wanted to kind of give somebody an audio or video kind of aspect where they can just put it on and just listen and watch if they need to. But, there's so much news out there and there's so much happening so rapidly that I think that it would be great for us to continue, and I'm sure we'll get better at this too. This is our just first prototype. So if you have a good idea for the name of this newsy section of our podcast, please put it down in the comments below. And I always forget this, but do like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, as well as Jim's Coatings Talk. I've been on the show. You've been on my show. I think that, you offer a very diverse and unique experience for so many people, because you're interviewing business owners that do roofing, that do coatings on roofings, that's some of the ones I've listened to. It's just like every week it's somebody new that is from a different aspect, but all related to coating and stuff. And your digital, I'm sure you're going to roll out more about your digital revolution. What is it called? Revolution?
Yeah, digital revolution. Viva la revolution.
Yeah. You showed me a bit of that before, but we're not going to unravel that, just, unveil that one just yet. But it's very, very interesting. And I love tech. I think a lot of our listeners love tech too. So, please join us for the next one. We hope to do this maybe monthly, maybe twice a month if it's popular, but definitely once a month for sure.
Not daily?
That would be cool if we could. If we could be that organized, but I don't know if I could be that organized.
Highly organized. I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe we'll just distribute it on a Saturday where people have a little bit more free time. I don't know. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
But we want you to be part of this, because the conversation is not just, Kim and myself. The conversation is all of us talking about these topics. And so the recommendations are really important to do. And also too, Kim, maybe we get lucky and we just start thinking about every so often on a quarterly basis, do a Saturday live stream and invite everybody to participate with us.
Yeah, I think actually this show could definitely be live, for sure. Maybe once a month, Saturdays or something like that. I think
Yeah.
it could, because I think it's going to add, when people can comment about what we're talking about, it can actually only make the conversation more relevant and more important, and stuff. And it helps us stay on top of what it is you guys want to hear about. These are just some of the topics that we like. But it can go into all different kinds of topics and transits and stuff like that. So thanks again, Jim. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kim.
All right, everybody. Have a beautiful day. Aloha. Thanks for joining In the News with Kim and Jim. Please drop us a comment below and tell us what your thoughts are of today's news articles and what you thought about the show. See you next time.